Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Brave Explanation in the AITA subreddit. The post is titled, "I disowned my wife's daughter after she chose her mom's affair partner over me." I, a 35-year-old man, met my now soon-to-be ex-wife, who is 33, during university 12 years ago. She already had a child when she was 19, but the dad left as soon as she started university. We were dating for 3 months before I met her daughter, Lisa. I remember seeing her family for the first time. I was nervous about meeting her parents, but when I saw a little girl beside her mom, I was confused. I asked her if that was her little sister or a cousin, and her answer shocked me. When she told me that was her daughter, I thought I misheard her or something. At first, I wanted to break up with her for hiding something so crucial from me, but she kept begging me to stay, and eventually I relented. Soon enough, I started to fall in love with her daughter and wanted to be her father figure. Our bond grew stronger over the years, and in early 2019, before the pandemic hit, we got married. In late 2021, I adopted Lisa, and in early 2022, my wife gave birth to our son, Mark. After my son was born, my wife made the choice to stay at home for the time being, and I was completely fine with that. Everything was going perfectly until a few months ago. I started noticing my wife increasingly spending time with her friends. At the time, I didn't say anything, since in my mind, being at home all day probably meant it was getting to her, and I didn't want to seem controlling. The thing that made me suspicious was her constant texting and going out of the room for calls. She never did that for anyone besides this one friend of hers. I asked her about it, but she gave me some vague answers about gossip. The moment that took it too far, though, was when I came home last week and saw her outside talking on the phone. This wasn't out of the ordinary. I remember seeing my son on the floor crying alone. I was pissed at my wife for just leaving him alone in the house, but when I went to pick him up and smelled the horrible stench coming from him, I was beyond furious. His diaper seemed like it hadn't been changed since that morning. I quickly changed his diaper and rushed outside with him in my arms. I was beyond angry. I snatched her phone from her hand and bolted back inside. I locked my wife outside to have a talk with this friend of hers alone. I had my suspicions about who it really was, and when I heard a male voice calling out her name and asking who was there, I immediately knew what was going on. He ended the call as soon as he heard my voice. I then proceeded to lock the front door to make sure my wife couldn't enter the house at all, and proceeded to screenshot as much of their chat as I could and then sent them to myself before deleting them on her phone. About 5 minutes later, she was still banging on the glass door leading to the backyard. I reluctantly opened it and was met with a smack in the face. As soon as she realized what she just did, she apologized profusely, started crying, and tried to hug me. I pushed her away and told her to meet me at the dining table. I told my daughter to quickly take care of the baby so my wife and I could have a quick chat. I just kept it simple. I told her this was her only chance to even have a sliver of a chance of getting me back. If she messed up this talk, it was over on the spot. No lies, nothing. She kept trying to apologize and to say it wasn't that serious. I reminded her that she not only messed me over, she could also have easily done serious harm to our son by leaving him alone in the house like that. I then simply asked who, for how long, and did they sleep together. She replied with her ex-boss, Daniel, 6 months, and she didn't answer the last one, so I kept reminding her that this was her last chance. She then just simply nodded. I then asked her if they used protection. To this, she started crying and started begging me for forgiveness. She said she would block him then and there, would never contact him again, and I could sleep with any woman I wanted from now on. I guess Lisa heard the commotion and came downstairs. I told her to go back up, but she just walked to my wife and asked her if I knew about Daniel. Up to this point, I was calm, but upon hearing this, I swear, even I started tearing up. I asked Lisa if she knew all along, and she said yes. At this point, I'm full on crying, and I asked her why she didn't tell me. She responded with, "Because unlike you, Daniel buys me the things I want without having to beg." I then asked her how she could possibly do this to her dad. She responded with the "you're not my real dad" crap. My wife screamed at her upon hearing what she said. At that point, I couldn't bear any of this anymore. I just grabbed my son and got into the car. My son and I are currently staying at my parents' house. I've basically been drinking myself to sleep every day. Thanks to the saint of a mother I have, my son is being taken care of right now. I am beyond hurt. I've canceled my ex-daughter's private school tuition, all her extracurricular activities, and I've contacted a divorce lawyer. He's going to serve my wife this Friday. My wife and Lisa have been blowing up my phone non-stop with apologies. I simply responded with, "Get a lawyer and tell that ungrateful thing of yours to start calling Daniel her dad. I'm disowning her." And then I blocked my wife. I didn't respond to Lisa, I just simply blocked her. I guess my wife told our friends what she and Lisa did, and now they have been texting me non-stop. They understand how I feel, but believe I'm going too far by divorcing my wife without hearing her out. They also keep telling me that disowning Lisa is definitely going too far, and she's only a kid and didn't understand what she was doing. I just can't get over the things she told me. I've worked my ass off to give my wife and daughter luxuries I could only have dreamed of as a kid, and this is how I get paid back. Lisa, 13 years old, is old enough to understand that hiding her mom's affair is bad and definitely purposely used those words to hurt me, but a part of me believes that there is still hope. A few family counseling sessions later, and we can go back to living the life I once considered a fairy tale. I'm beyond destroyed by this whole situation. A part of me just wants to see them burn in hell, but the other part of me believes there is still hope. Am I really going too far? Is there still hope? Update. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for the support you have shown me. This past week has been the hardest period of my life. Seeing the love I shared with the woman I considered my partner for life just vanish hit me worse than anything else. To those who have privately messaged me, thank you and please be patient with me. I have over 100 unread messages to date and will need a bit of time to respond to all of them. I just want to update you on what has happened since I posted. First of all, I'm happy to report that I've quit alcohol. It was tough, but seeing how my life was basically falling apart due to my constant drinking was a real wake-up call for me. As someone kindly suggested, I asked my mom to throw out all the alcohol in her house. The first couple of days were tough, with me being more depressed than ever, but I'm doing much better now. As for my wife, I've had a brief conversation with her, and I have halted all divorce proceedings for the time being. There is still a lot to navigate and a ton of logistics involved, and my decision for divorce seemed a bit in the heat of the moment. I'm not saying that I'm going back to her, I'm just saying I need to reevaluate everything again. What she did was beyond hurtful and irresponsible. If I were to get back with her, she would have to do a lot to make up for this mess. I have removed half of the money from our joint account and have stopped paying the lease on my wife's car. I asked her the following questions. Has she been in contact with Daniel since our falling out? She said she has completely cut off contact with her ex-boss and is willing to do anything to make our marriage work. Why did she go to him or meet him in the first place? She said she honestly doesn't know. She met him at a get-together her old company held, and in her words, they just clicked. They started hanging out as friends, and soon things grew out of hand, and she started bringing him over to the house when I was at work. Did she have feelings for him while they worked together? She said she found him cute, but left it at that. They never did anything or said anything outside of work. I then started asking her questions about our daughter, Lisa. Some of you rightly pointed out that she probably poisoned her against me. Why did she bring Daniel around our daughter? Lisa once caught them making out on the couch, and when she threatened to tell me, they quickly shut her up with gifts and a new phone, etc. Soon enough, Lisa actually started to like having Daniel around because of the gifts. Did she badmouth me to Lisa? To this, she just went silent and started crying. I then pressed a bit more, and she finally blurted out that she started telling Lisa that Daniel was her bio dad. Not gonna lie, after this, I myself started crying and just hung up. I did see a change in my daughter around the same time, but I just chalked it up to her being a teenager. Hearing this just broke my heart even more. I also want to thank you guys for telling me that it wasn't right to put all the blame on my 13-year-old daughter. I wasn't thinking straight at the time, and when I started sobering up, I did sort of realize the mistake I made. I have unblocked my daughter and have been texting with her since yesterday. She has apologized to me, and it seems like my wife, in desperation to get me back, has confessed the truth to my daughter. My daughter told me that she has stopped talking with her mother since she confessed. I apologized to her for the comments I made about disowning her, and we have planned to meet up tomorrow at the local park. Again, I just want to sincerely thank you guys for the support and the advice. Honestly, I couldn't have navigated this mess alone while being intoxicated. Only God knows what would have happened if I didn't reach out. I also want to apologize for the drunken rant I went on in the comments. I'm beyond embarrassed at the things I said. Again, thank you all for the support, and I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Edit, I forgot to mention the DNA testing on my son. I definitely acknowledge it being a possibility, but neither am I mentally in a place to be able to cope with the stress of something like that. Nor am I ready to face the reality that I might look at him differently if the test turns out negative. I'll do it eventually, but not now during this mess. Larky Pie said OP is a fool if he doesn't divorce his abusive, manipulative wife. Shirohana said, I read some of his replies and he basically said he isn't saying no to divorce, he's trying to figure it all out before making the move. I agree though that if he indeed does stay together, he's just a doormat. Life Yogurt Closet said he quit drinking and decided that sharing the love of another man, while the girl he raised was involved in everything, was fine all in 4 days. What a great guy. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Father's Day 22. The post is titled AITA for not spending Father's Day with my son. I lost my father at a young age. Ever since then, I spend Father's Day at his grave and visiting places that were important to him. My wife has always been supportive of this, but last year that changed. Our son, now 6 years old, wanted to attend this Father's Day festival with me. I told him that I already had plans, but he was welcome to join me and learn about his grandfather. My son didn't enjoy the day. He was very bored at the gravesite, and I repeatedly had to direct him away from other graves. The long car rides were also a lot for him. I decided that this type of experience shouldn't be repeated for him until he is older. Tickets for this year's festival just went on sale, and this morning my wife gave me 2 tickets, 1 adult and 1 child, for me and my son. I reminded her that I had plans. She got mad and told me my dad would be disappointed in me for neglecting his grandson. I got really irritated with my wife. I told her this one day is all I ever ask for, and I am not giving it up. She called me an awful husband and said if I don't take our son to the festival, she will and will tell everyone there she's present because her husband is a deadbeat dad. I think she's out of line. Am I in the wrong? Update. Initially, my plan was to get an unbiased perspective. I figured since almost everyone agreed that I was in the wrong, it really was important to go to this festival. However, the flood of vitriol that followed gave me pause. There's really no such thing as an unbiased perspective. Everyone has an agenda. The caustic comments prove that. A polite person asked if I would have wanted to go to such a festival with my dad. That hit me because of course I would. I would want to do almost anything with my dad who I miss. Kids love festivals, so of course I would have enjoyed this as a kid. However, my dad never spoiled me, and I'm not going to teach my son that the world revolves around him either. There are plenty of festivals and carnivals we attend throughout the year. That can't be every day. This is Dad's day, his only day, and I'm not gonna take it from him. I talked to my mom about what happened, and she told me that I wouldn't reward my son for having a tantrum, but am rewarding my wife. And she's right. On June 19th, I'm going to take my son to my hometown. He'll spend the morning with my mom while I visit the grave. Then I'll take him to lunch at my dad's favorite restaurant. We'll go swimming near the place Dad used to take me fishing. I'll take him to get ice cream. It'll be a nice day, and it will be a day that honors my dad. My wife can go to the festival if she wants, but my son will not be attending. I know many of you were excited that I decided to take him, but I'm not going to teach my son it's okay to be selfish. I'm going to continue to teach him about Dad so Dad can live on in spirit. I make my son the focus of almost every holiday, but this is Dad's day. That's an important lesson for him to learn. Sometimes it's not about us. Sometimes it's about others. A deleted user said, I don't think people realize that the problem here is that he ultimately thought his son was selfish and self-absorbed for wanting to spend time with him and celebrate him on Father's Day. Grief is tough, but you shouldn't let it consume you to the point that you don't see how you're hurting the living. Sue Donham said, it's sad that the young son loses out to a ghost because his dad needs to get a grip. OP is such an ass. This final post was made in the True Off My Chest subreddit by a user named Anxious Femme. The post is titled, "My husband's childhood best friend asked me for a favor. Then she humiliated me in front of her family. I'm done being the bigger person. I've been sitting on this for a few days, trying to decide if I'm just being dramatic or if I've been letting too much slide for too long. So I've been happily married for a few years now. My husband is honestly a gem, kind, patient, hilarious, loyal. Basically everything you'd want. Which, after having an ex cheat on me with his best friend, is kind of a big deal. That relationship wrecked me for a while, but I worked hard not to drag the wreckage into something new. And thankfully, my husband has never given me a single reason to question him. Until now, maybe, I do not know. My husband and I have a great relationship, and we're pretty social and often hang out with each other's friends. I get along with almost all of his group, and they've honestly made me feel welcome except for her. His childhood best friend. Let's call her C. C has always been cold to me. Not outright rude, just subtle enough to make me feel crazy for noticing. You know that kind of vibe? Every time we've been in the same room, she's managed to talk around me, not to me. I tried, I really did. I've smiled, made conversation, been nothing but warm, even when she's given me nothing to work with. She doesn't show up to group hangouts, but she'll invite him over, and he always tells me to his credit. He never goes without mentioning it, and he's never weird or secretive about her, but it still rubs me the wrong way. I've tried being friendly, I've tried small talk. Hell, I invited her to our birthdays, barbecues, engagement dinner. She skipped our wedding too. And she only ever seems to reach out to him usually when she's just been dumped and needs to talk. When I've brought it up, my husband says I'm overthinking it. That C is just a little odd socially. Maybe she is. Then a few weeks ago, out of nowhere, she messaged me. She asked if I'd model for her project. Totally unexpected. And I was caught off guard enough to say yes. Part of me thought maybe this is her trying to connect. Maybe this was her olive branch. I even felt a little hopeful. God, I was naive. So I agreed. My husband offered to come with me since he hadn't seen her in a while and thought it'd be fun to catch up after. When we got there, her family was also involved, and from the second I walked in, it was like stepping into some passive-aggressive Twilight Zone. Her mom and sister kept calling my husband our son-in-law. I laughed awkwardly, thought I must have misheard. It only got worse. During the shoot, there were more snarky comments, jokes about the one that got away, and some bonds never fade. Her mom at one point literally said, "We always thought C would end up with him, but life has its detours, I guess, and C always imagined walking down the aisle with him. And then, it's sweet of her to fill in though. Oh, come on. I wish I was exaggerating." And C just kept snapping pictures, smiling, saying nothing. No, "Hey, cut it out," no awkward laugh, no redirect. Nothing. My husband, clearly uncomfortable. I watched him fidget through the whole thing, clear his throat a few times. He tried to change the subject or came near me during the shooting. He didn't say much either, just went kinda quiet. I stuck it out for an hour, let her take her photos, smiled, posed, whatever. But the whole time I felt like I was part of a social experiment and everyone else was in on the joke but me. When we got in the car, he was silent for a while, then finally said, "Sorry about all, that was weird, right?" And honestly, I didn't even know what to say. Because yeah, it was weird. It was borderline disrespectful. And the fact that he was there, saw all of it, clearly felt it too, and still didn't step in or pull the plug. It makes me feel kind of alone in this. I'm just tired of pretending this woman is harmless or just awkward. She knows exactly what she's doing. I don't want to start a huge fight, but I'm at the point where I don't want her in our lives. Not as a friend, not as a ghost in the corner of our marriage. No more bending over backwards to be the cool wife. I'm not interested in earning points with someone who clearly doesn't want me around. Anyway, thanks for letting me scream into the void for a minute. I really needed to get this out. Edit. Sorry guys, English is not my first language. Sometimes it is harder to get my points or feelings across. Just to clarify a few things people were asking about, C is actually a photography major and this shoot was part of her final project. I'm not a professional model or anything, but I've done some hobby modeling here and there, so when she asked if I'd help out, I thought it was a casual favor. Why at her house? She comes from a wealthy family and has a fully set up photo studio in their house, which is why the shoot happened there instead instead of at a regular studio. I honestly thought it'd just be her and the camera, not a full audience with drinks and commentary. Additional background: I grew up in a pretty emotionally abusive household, so I think I've gotten too used to passive-aggressive comments and just sort of freeze up. Maybe that's why I didn't react more in the moment, but yeah, it definitely hit harder after the fact. I will update you as soon as possible. Update. A quick recap for those who missed the original. My husband's childhood best friend, C, has never liked me. She skipped all invitations, avoids me in person, and still finds little ways to insert herself into his life. The final straw: she asked me to model for her final photography project. I showed up thinking maybe it was a fresh start. Nope. Instead, I got publicly mocked by her family, who joked out loud that she should have been the one marrying my husband. First off, holy crap, I did not expect that post to blow up like it did. Thank you to everyone who commented, messaged, or just made me feel like I wasn't losing my mind. So many of you asked for an update, and here it is. For those wondering, no, they never dated. He had a high school crush on her over a decade ago. That's ancient history. No, I don't think he's ever cheated emotionally or physically. He's always very open and honest. We have each other's passwords. They barely see each other anymore in person, maybe once every few months. Okay, so here's the update. Funny enough, I didn't even get the chance to sit down and talk to my husband before something else happened. Anyway, I was still trying to process what happened and sort through my anger towards C, and honestly, toward my husband too. That's when I got a message from my sister-in-law. We'll call her M. I'm really close with M. She's also part of the wider social circle that C floats around in. They're friendly, but not close. She sent me a screen recording from C's close friend story with a simple, "What the fuck?" It was a clip of me posing during the shoot, no music, but in the background you can clearly hear C's sister say, C should have been the one to marry him. I lost it. I waited until my husband got home from work, sat him down, and showed him the video. He watched it once, then again. His whole face changed. He finally looked pissed. I could not help but think, why didn't he have the same reaction there? So I laid it all out. I told him everything. Every snide comment, every time C made me feel small, how I'd always tried to be civil, how I never asked him to choose between us. But I was done being polite while someone consistently disrespected me. I told him, if this doesn't bother you enough to act, we've got a bigger problem. I'm not going to be in a marriage where I have to beg to be defended. I need a partner who stands up for me, and if that's not you, then I need to rethink this. He didn't argue, he didn't get defensive, and I know he feels sorry. Then I showed him the Reddit post. He tried to read every comment. Some of them made him tear up. When he finished, he looked at me and said that he feels like the worst husband. He let this happen right in front of him. He is so sorry. And he asked me, "What do you need from me now?" I told him straight up. This isn't just about her anymore. It's about whether or not you're willing to protect this marriage. But I'm not going to feel like I'm second place in my own relationship. So it's either me or her. So we called C. She picked up all cheerful, acting like nothing had happened. We brought up the video. She immediately got defensive. "Oh, come on. It was just a joke. Are you really mad over that? Seriously?" And that's when he stepped in. This isn't just about the video, it's the constant disrespect toward my wife. I didn't say anything before because I didn't want to lose your friendship, and I convinced myself you didn't mean it. But what happened at that shoot? That was disgusting. My wife came to support you, and your family treated her like a joke. I didn't speak up then, and I'm ashamed of that. But that ends now. I don't even know why I held on to this friendship for so long. If you can't respect my wife, you don't respect me. She laughed, literally laughed. Wow, you're really cutting me off over that girl? Oh my god, I was ready to fight. But my husband calmed me down and said to C, if choosing between you and my wife ever felt like a hard decision, I wouldn't deserve her. We're not kids anymore. You need to grow up. I simply do not want to be your friend anymore. I have nothing else to say. But yeah, we blocked her and her entire family. Since then, he's been checking in with me, not trying to fix things, just showing up, listening, understanding. He finally sees what I've been dealing with. We've still got some healing to do, but now I know where he stands, and that changes everything for me. I'm not creepy, said, having to get your family to join in on bullying someone is beyond pathetic. Observe Only Daily said, I don't understand how people's minds work sometimes. If it were my family who commented, he was supposed to marry you, not her, in front of me and his wife, I would be so humiliated that I'd bury myself in my room and never come out. How pathetic does the friend look that her family thinks she can't attract a decent guy? They're hung up on a married man. Lulu42 said, I'd have a hard time forgetting that he didn't step in and correct anyone at the shoot, even if the rest could be excused. To this, Professor Lex said, the sad truth is that many people are doormats. It's something that he finally snapped out of and pushed back. A lot of people never make it to that stage, unfortunately. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.